It was a sweltering summer day in Hollywood when I got the job at the gas station on Sunset Boulevard. The place was old, probably built in the 1950s, and had a lot of character, or as my boss put it, a lot of junk that needs sorting. My first task was to clean out the storage area in the back. I spent hours sifting through dusty boxes filled with outdated merchandise, old employee uniforms, and a surprising number of spiderwebs. As I was pushing a heavy shelf aside, I noticed something strange. A small, hidden door behind it, its edges barely visible under layers of grime and dust. Curiosity got the better of me. I cleared away the cobwebs and debris, revealing a rusty handle. I hesitated for a moment, my heart pounding with a mix of excitement and dread. Then, I took a deep breath and pulled the door open. The smell hit me first. Stale, musty air that hadn't been disturbed in decades. The room was tiny, barely more than a closet, and completely dark. I grabbed my flashlight and shone it inside. The beam revealed a room that seemed frozen in time. The walls were covered with old photographs, and a small wooden table sat in the center, covered in dust. I stepped inside, my flashlight illuminating the eerie scene. The photographs on the walls were black and white, featuring people I recognized, young versions of famous Hollywood celebrities, some of whom were still household names. But these photos were different. They showed the celebrities in disturbing and compromising positions, participating in what looked like bizarre and humiliating rituals. On the table, I found an old, leather-bound diary. Its cover was cracked and worn, and the pages were yellowed with age. I opened it and began to read. The entries detailed a series of grotesque rituals and sacrifices performed in secret by a cult of Hollywood elites seeking fame and power. The first entry was dated 1951. It described a ritual involving a young starlet who was forced to undergo a series of degrading acts in front of a group of powerful men. The details were graphic and horrifying, a twisted mix of humiliation and violence. According to the diary, these rituals were believed to grant the participants immense status and influence in the entertainment industry. As I read further, I discovered that the diary belonged to a man named Edward Collins, a name I didn't recognize. He described himself as the Keeper of Secrets, tasked with documenting the cult's activities. His final entry was from 1968, the year he mysteriously disappeared. The last words in the diary sent chills down my spine. The sacrifices continue. They always will, as long as Hollywood exists. I couldn't believe what I was reading. It was like something out of a horror movie, but the photographs and the detailed accounts in the diary made it all too real. I quickly took pictures of some of the diary pages and the photographs on the walls with my phone, my hands shaking. Suddenly, I heard footsteps behind me. I spun around, my flashlight illuminating the doorway. My boss stood there, his face pale and eyes wide with shock. "What are you doing in here?" he demanded, his voice trembling. I found this room while cleaning," I stammered. "What is all this?" He glanced around the room, his expression shifting from surprise to fear. "You need to leave. Now. This place was supposed to stay hidden. But these pictures, this diary, what does it all mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "It's not something you should be involved in," he replied, stepping closer. "If you know what's good for you, you'll forget you ever saw this." I felt a surge of defiance. People need to know about this. These are powerful people, and they've been getting away with this for decades. My boss's expression hardened. "You're making a big mistake." I pushed past him and ran out of the storage room, clutching my phone. I didn't stop until I was outside, gulping in the fresh air. My mind was racing. I knew I had stumbled onto something dark and dangerous, something that could cost me more than just my job. In the days that followed, I tried to share what I found, but no one believed me. The photographs and diary pages mysteriously disappeared from my phone. My boss fired me, and soon after, strange things started happening. I felt like I was being followed, and my apartment was broken into, though nothing was taken. I moved away from Hollywood, but the memories of that hidden room haunt me to this day. Sometimes, late at night, I can still see the faces in those photographs, and I wonder how many more secrets Hollywood hides behind its glitzy facade. I still can't shake the feeling that some doors are meant to stay closed. But I also know that as long as people are willing to open them, the truth will never stay hidden forever. It's been 15 years since that night, but I remember every detail as if it just happened. I was working the night shift at a lonely gas station on Route 27. It was a quiet night, and the clock had just ticked past midnight. I was leaning against the counter, trying to keep myself awake with a cup of lukewarm coffee. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw headlights approaching. A black sedan slowed down and pulled into the station. It drove past the pumps, circled the lot, and then exited back onto the highway. I shrugged it off as someone lost or indecisive. But half an hour later, the same car returned. This time it drove around the lot twice before leaving again. Unease began to settle in my stomach. I've heard plenty of creepy stories about night shifts at gas stations, but I never thought I'd find myself in one. An hour passed, and I tried to distract myself with work, stocking shelves and cleaning up. Then, I saw the black sedan for the third time. It pulled up to the far end of the lot and parked. The engine turned off, but no one got out. My unease turned to fear. I considered calling the police, but without a real reason, I doubted they'd take me seriously. Summoning all my courage, I decided to confront the driver. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out into the cold night. The walk to the car felt like an eternity. As I approached, I saw a figure sitting in the driver's seat, staring straight ahead. I knocked on the window, and the driver slowly turned to face me. My breath caught in my throat. The man had a wild look in his eyes, and his face was contorted with rage. He rolled down the window just enough to speak. "Is there a problem?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The man grinned, a chilling, toothy smile. "I've been looking for you, Jack." I took a step back. "Do I know you?" His eyes widened. "You should. I'm here because of Emily." Emily was my wife. A cold chill ran down my spine as I realized who this must be. Emily had told me about her ex-boyfriend, Greg, a man who had become increasingly unstable and obsessive before she broke things off. We had moved to a new town to escape him, but it seemed he had found us. "What do you want?" I demanded, my voice trembling. Greg's smile faded, replaced by a look of pure hatred. "You took her from me. She was mine, and you stole her. Now I'm here to take back what's rightfully mine." My mind raced. I needed to get back to the safety of the gas station. "Look, Greg, Emily chose to leave you. You need to move on." Greg's eyes blazed with fury. "I'll never move on. She's mine, Jack. And if I can't have her, no one can." I turned and ran back towards the gas station. I could hear Greg's footsteps pounding the pavement behind me. I barely made it inside and slammed the door, locking it just as Greg reached it. He pounded on the glass, his face twisted in rage. "Come out, Jack! Face me like a man!" Greg screamed. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. "There's a man trying to break into the gas station on Route 27. He's threatening me. Please send help quickly." The operator assured me that officers were on their way, but I knew it would take time for them to reach such a remote location. I backed away from the door, keeping an eye on Greg, who was now pacing outside, shouting obscenities and threats. Minutes felt like hours. The pounding on the door continued, and I feared it wouldn't hold much longer. Suddenly, the sound of sirens filled the air. Red and blue lights flashed outside, and Greg turned to face the approaching police cars. "Jack, you can't hide forever!" Greg yelled one last time before running off into the darkness. The officers arrived and quickly secured the area. They took my statement and promised to find Greg. As they left, I finally allowed myself to breathe. I knew that this nightmare wasn't over, but for now, I was safe. I glanced at the clock. It was almost morning. I sank into a chair, exhausted but relieved. As I waited for the dawn, I made a silent promise to protect Emily and myself from Greg's madness, no matter what it took. 15 years have passed since that night. Greg was eventually caught and committed to a psychiatric facility. Emily and I moved again, and we've tried to leave those dark days behind us. But every now and then, when I'm alone at night, I can still hear the pounding on that door and Greg's chilling voice echoing in my mind. It was a quiet evening 3 years ago at the gas station where I worked, just off the interstate. The sun had set, and the night shift had begun. I was the only one on duty, watching the clock and waiting for my shift to end. It was one of those slow nights with few customers, just the occasional car pulling in for gas. Around 10 p.m., a blue sedan pulled up to pump 3. A man in his mid-30s stepped out, wearing a dark hoodie and jeans. He looked tired, probably on a long road trip. He started fueling up, then walked toward the store. He gave me a nod as he entered, heading straight for the back where the restrooms were located. Minutes passed, and I got lost in my routine tasks, restocking shelves, wiping down counters, and checking the inventory. After about 20 minutes, I realized the guy hadn't come back yet. I glanced outside. His car was still there, pump nozzle still in the tank. "Hey, everything okay back there?" I called out, but there was no response. I walked to the back of the store, down the dimly lit hallway toward the restrooms. I knocked on the door of the men's room. "Sir, are you all right?" Silence. Worried, I opened the door, but the bathroom was empty. Puzzled, I checked the storage room and even peeked outside the back door, thinking he might have stepped out for some air. Nothing. The guy had vanished. I went back to the front and called the police, explaining the situation. They arrived within 20 minutes, a couple of officers who seemed more curious than concerned. I showed them the security footage. We watched as the man entered the store, walked down the hallway to the restrooms, and then nothing. He never came out. One of the officers rewound the footage and watched it again, his brow furrowing. "Looks like there's a blind spot," he said, pointing to a section of the hallway that wasn't covered by the cameras. "Right where the restroom doors are." They searched the store and the surrounding area thoroughly, but found no trace of him. It was as if he had just disappeared into thin air. After an hour of fruitless searching, they decided to tow the car, hoping the man might contact the station or the police to retrieve it. But days turned into weeks, and no one ever came forward. The police eventually closed the case, labeling the man as a missing person. They speculated he might have run off for personal reasons, but that didn't sit right with me. Why leave his car and belongings? Where could he have gone in such a short span of time? And how did he disappear from a locked bathroom? I couldn't stop thinking about it. I kept replaying that night in my head, wondering if I had missed something, some clue that could explain the man's disappearance. But there was nothing. Just the unsettling reality that a person had vanished right under my nose, and I had no explanation. The gas station was always eerie at night after that. Every time I passed that hallway, a shiver ran down my spine. I checked the restroom more times than I could count, half expecting to find some hidden door or passageway that could explain the man's fate. But there was nothing out of the ordinary. 3 years have passed, and I still think about that man sometimes. I wonder where he is, if he's even still alive. The gas station has changed owners since then, and I've moved on to a different job. But the memory lingers, a mystery that haunts me. Whenever I pass by that old gas station, I can't help but feel a sense of unease. The new owners installed more cameras, covering every inch of the place. But I know that some mysteries can't be solved with technology. Sometimes people just disappear, leaving nothing but questions behind. That night taught me that the world is full of inexplicable events, and sometimes the most ordinary places can harbor the darkest secrets. I've come to accept that I may never know what happened to that man, but I'll never forget the night he vanished into thin air.